May we have a roll call?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Dennehy,
Here.
Councilmember Schmischer,
Here.
Councilmember B. Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Stein,
Here.
Councilmember Tracy.
Here.
Councilmember Worthington,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hammond,
Here.
and Mayor Smith.
And we have two things to discuss here tonight: festival liquor licenses and updated medical marijuana ordinance. So are you you're making the first one, Ryan?
Yes, so I will kick us off. The festival liquor license is a new designation under the liquor code. We are looking for guidance. What we would propose is enacting legislation to allow for local permitting on this. If we don't enact that legislation, it goes through the state. We do local permitting on everything else from a liquor license standpoint. It runs concurrent with the state, but we would like to have the ability to do that locally. And Catherine, anything else you would like to add regarding?
Yeah, so before the change in the law, winery manufacturers and limited wineries, those two types of liquor licenses were allowed these permits. They are still allowed these permits. Those will only be issued by the state. You will not issue festival permits for those two licenses. However, now people who have beer and wine, brew pubs, distilleries, hotels and restaurants, manufactured tavern and a wholesaler license can apply for a festival permit. With the state currently, because this change was over a year old now, so this would create a local kind of mirroring provision or mirroring permit process at the same time. And so a licensee can have up to 9 festivals a year. They have to give 10 days notice that they're going to hold a festival. And if they have, like, let's say they're having a beer festival and other breweries are coming in, those breweries can just be under that festival license. And so they don't have to go and get their own separate licenses. So that's how it works. The way that the ordinance is written now, and this is your call, it's under that administrative application definition, so the clerk would be approving it, so you wouldn't actually see those.
Right.
But you can certainly not do that and have it come to you.
Yeah, that helps explain, because when I was first reading this, I have to get through the state and through the local, and I thought, is this a money into the bank type thing or not? But this way it saves them from doing two things. Well,
Yeah, they'll apply at the same time. It's the same application form, so the city doesn't really create its own form. It does the state. I think that was in the
Concurrent.
Yeah, and so they'll just apply to return.
So there's the state fee then and the city fee,
yeah,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
so there is two fees.
Yes.
There are two
Yeah.
fees. Yeah.
Did something happen to trigger the desire for the city to do? local?
They changed.
Say law changed. I think Brian can maybe speak to why staff is bringing this forward.
Yeah, from a liquor licensing standpoint, all the other, with the exceptions that Catherine mentioned, all the other permits are, we do concurrent licensing. So this is a request to be consistent across those permitting applications.
I have a basic question, if I could. Is somewhere in here, is festival defined and or is it defined in state law that we should incorporate here?
I don't think it's actually defined in state law, but I can certainly check that for
I
you.
think it would almost.
In general, we follow the state law definitions. There's lots of definitions that aren't in the liquor code that we just follow because we can't really hear anything in the state liquor code. But
Just be interesting to know how that's defined.
Functionally, essentially there's a functional definition. The functional definition is more than one liquor license being brought under the umbrella of one permit. So that's a festival.
So that's kind of the core thing that defines festivals.
yeah, and I'm not sure it really has to be two. It could be just one.
Well, that's why I would like
Yeah.
to see a definition, if there is one. I'm just making the assumption state law probably did define that, but.
Well, you have clients.
Absolutely do.
So, just real quick. What are we looking at for fees for the city for?
Probably the same, right? 25 and 25.
Yeah, I don't know that it would be in line with our regular,
Just our regular,
our normal fee schedule.
Okay.
We're not asking for anything special on that. It would just be our normal fee schedule.
That's
So it probably, well, I don't know what your normal like retail liquor license is probably pretty high. You might want to make it smaller. I don't
Yeah,
know.
25, if we use their form, it's
Oh,
25.
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, their form says 25. We do some other, I can't remember what they're called. It's like when the chamber hosts business after hours, the
Temporary special.
yeah, temporary, special liquor licenses. So we'd probably look at having the fee align with something like with that. out.
Well, and this does kind of, so you might remember that special event permits are very narrow as to who the applicant can be.
Yep.
So this is very kind of almost similar to that special event permit, but opening up the applicants. Special events are nonprofit church stations.
Yeah.
So they're very limited. So this would open it up to just
It's
liquor licenses.
Have you ever got or worked under a festival license or something like that, or?
I have, yes, yes.
And so they've been available in the past?
For festival
Yeah.
licenses? Yeah. Not here.
I think,
No, in another jurisdiction.
yeah,
And do you have some idea what the festival is? I mean, that's really my question. I'd like,
No, there's no definition, so
yeah,
it can, like here, like recently when they did just an example that would be a festival, it wasn't in the city, it was a county, when they did the great, or whatever, the beer festival or that recently, down at Pathfinder Park.
yeah, brouhaha or
So
something.
co-libation fest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, that would have been one, and that would have been one that could have had a license, then all the, could have came in under it.
Yeah,
Same thing for like the Italian festival.
Exactly, could be.
yeah. And again, those are, very limited.
Yeah.
On who could apply. This opens that up.
And there's not a whole lot in town really that I think that really,
So there's only one, so they would be filling out one for us and one for the state. One of these,
That is the state application.
this is the state application. Would we have an identical application? Okay, so how do they know they have to pay $50 instead of 25?
So if we were to pass this ordinance.
Right.
We would pass our $25 application fee and add it to your fee schedule.
Right, but where would it be on the application? How would they know if they're filling out the Colorado one? How would they know
So
that
it's
they
probably a
owe?
good question for Cindy, but I
Yeah.
think the state talks to the local license. We would notify the state that they need a local license, and so there would be communication.
So they'd have a different,
Yeah, so they fill out two applications. There's one for the state and one for us.
okay, so it's
We
two
just
applications.
run them concurrently.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that. So I apologize.
and
I
we
thought-
would,
I'll double check with Cindy, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that
would
we
want
run
to make it
two
easier.
concurrent license or applications.
So what's the benefit then of a festival license? Is that you can have multiple licensees under one permit and only one fee? Would that be right?
Well, I think the benefit, as I see it, is it opens up who can actually do a festival. So right now, it's only nonprofits that can apply for those special event permits. So
Yes,
World's End.
World's End Brewing
Right.
wanted to have an Oktoberfest.
yeah,
And they wanted to go outside of their liquor boundary.
yes,
They could do an Oktoberfest and shut down the street
makes it possible.
and makes it
Right.
possible.
And of course, shutting down the street, that's where the city's interests really come in and why we would like to know that they are contemplating such.
Well, plus it would also be nice to know when there's a liquor festival going on and the application have to be filed within the city building as well. And we just wouldn't have random festivals going on that we
Showing
didn't
up.
know.
Yeah, I'm sure Chief Chick would.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think.
blocking out streets.
So you have to take money out of the fees fund too, to
Sure, that's good.
Absolutely.
Just all those, it's even $25 just come in.
Yeah, that's really just Cindy, processing.
Right.
It's, Councilwoman Schmisher has her. hand
Oh,
up.
sorry, I didn't see there it is. Okay.
No worries. Thank you. I was just curious on section 530-115, the festival permits. It says that a limited winery or winery licensee is not required to obtain a festival permit. And I know that that comes directly from the CRS, the Colorado Revised Statute. And I was just wondering if there's a separate process for limited winery or winery licensees to do festivals, and if we also are contemplating an ordinance for local registration of that, or kind of what that looks like. Thanks.
No, you don't have permission to permit their festivals. They only go through the state.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Is part of the discussion too about trying to bring it all in line with council doing certain things and city clerk doing certain things? Could someone say more about that?
Yeah, so currently, not without the festival permit. So Cindy handles temporary liquor licensing, manager registration, transfers of ownership, changes in the licensed entities, special event permits and renewals. Everything else is set for council. So it's just those things in that definition. So if you chose, we would add festival permits to that definition and she would handle that.
Or we could choose to have it come to council.
You can.
Or
You are the liquor licensing authority, right? So you have delegated some duties to her.
yeah.
We
Nope.
used to do, wasn't it the special event permits that city council used to do them, and it was getting to be one, filling up our agenda, but two, it was a nuisance, a really big nuisance and inconvenience to those putting on the events. And so we switched it to Cindy, so it was just more streamlined.
Sometimes they're not, they apply kind of at the last minute and then
Yeah.
we gotta get it on the council. So I think that's
Right.
what we were experiencing.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've tried, at least since I've been on council, I think we've tried to give more administrative power so that we are sensitive to timelines, whether it be for building, for zoning, for other things, just so that.
Business friendly.
Part of that
Yeah.
business friendly initiative. Yeah.
Well, and I don't know, whether Cindy, maybe through Ryan or on her own, reports what liquor licenses are coming through or what's being permitted. And if that's not happening, that certainly can happen. So at least you kind of know.
So we don't necessarily report back to council on the renewals and things like that. We do have provisions in there where if there are law enforcement issues or concerns about the liquor license for a renewal, we will bring those back to council. But if there are no issues or concerns, we process those administratively.
This is just a question. I don't necessarily think we need to do this, but we could, I guess, ask for you to include in your city administrative report, like have a city clerk section, these renewals were completed this month or something. I don't know. if Anybody wants to see that?
That it's kind of like the second that. I think that might be, I hate reports, but having made many reports myself, but that actually was just a little, even a little table.
Yeah, that's what I.
That's nice.
Yeah, we can add a section for that.
That would be really nice, because that would give them.
And then we know, gee, this list here, we have not had problems. They've been renewed routinely. I think that would.
Yeah, I think really 3 years I've been doing, as the administrator, I think there's only one or maybe two that we've brought to city council for particular issues.
Right.
And this is just hypothetical, but what happens if you see the list, you give us the list the next meeting, and you sit there and say, I know something about this. Do you guys know about this? I mean, because it's a small town, but sometimes people know things. Do we bring that up to you or just ignore it because you guys are really the ones that handle
I was bringing it up, I would say. So for a while there was problems with those who were like checking the armbands and stuff, and they were drinking a lot. themselves, and that was kind of it.
How can you watch somebody else when you're?
So when Cindy does renewals, she sends them out to referral. So it goes to the police department, goes to the fire department, goes to the health department, and other department heads.
Okay, so
So everybody has an
opportunity.
opportunity to speak about any particular instances that they might have with that address and that.
There's probably a very good chance I wouldn't have it. So.
So what, the $50 total, do you think that might be a hardship for some nonprofits?
Well, nonprofits are already applying under the special event permit.
And but they're paying 25 now to the state or?
I would have to double check to see.
Or
I think
they-
it's 50, just
they're
from my
paying 50,
time on,
And
Sons of
most of
Italy.
those are money makers, so that just
Right.
takes that off of the
Hopefully,
overhead.
yeah, yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully, not always.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true too.
Yeah, usually, that the beer sales is what gets most of those. If they're not in the black, it gets them pretty close.
Mhm.
Oh, I think it goes way over. Just from what we sold at the Italian.
As long as what, if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
You mentioned being the city administrator for 3 years. Saw an interesting coffee mug today. It said, being a city administrator is like riding a bicycle that's on fire. And you're on fire and everything's on fire.
Turn around.
God, it's already on fire right now.
You see that mug?
He's gonna buy them all.
Some people that might appreciate it.
Okay, moving on, any other questions? So this is, we're giving feedback here. And so are we good with this? Does this look like a good way to do it? Any tweaks or anything that people think that we need? It looks good to me. The fee would just then be added administratively to our fee schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the liquor license.
And maybe just a definition of what festival. is.
That's what I'm thinking, or a reference to the state law.
Yeah.
There's no definition.
No
There is
definition.
no regulation.
Okay.
So it's, I guess it's in the item of the holder.
Okay.
For the applicant.
We're having a hell of a.
Some people might call it a festival, some might call it a soiree.
But before it comes back to council, we will look and see if there's any additional information.
Okay.
Okay.
See if Cindy knows any more. It looks like Councilmember Schmisser has her.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, Amy.
Thanks. I just wanted to make sure that I understand the benefit. I think what I heard is it's consistent with our other permitting processes and it gives us awareness of what is going to occur. I'm assuming that we would have that same awareness from the state, that they let us know when they have approved a festival liquor license in our jurisdiction. Is that correct?
I would
No.
not.
They are not required to.
I would say no on that. I mean, I'm not 100%, but that's just not fair.
Well, and I,
We have been in situations where the state has approved producer licenses within the city limits where we had no jurisdiction and we were unaware of those approvals. So I would not hold my breath that the state would notify us.
and,
Was that the distillery?
It was.
oh, my God, interesting.
So the other benefit is that it opens up the opportunity for businesses.
Yes.
Yes.
To have
But-
festivals.
But they don't, we don't have, that opportunity is there for them by the state passing the CRS and having a state licensing process. We do not have to have a local licensing process in order for this opportunity to be there for them.
That's absolutely correct.
But we would just like to.
Oh, I think as liquor licensing board, we have that role. and To me, this fits into that role.
I think
I would
there's
like,
a little more, not necessarily control, but it's information that we
yeah.
can heads up. if
Especially
nothing
from a
else.
public safety standpoint.
Right, right.
Well, and Catherine, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but if there is an application and we have concerns because we have local knowledge,
Mm,
we can appeal to the states or have some type of input as well.
No, there's no. I mean, they're gonna, if we don't have a local.
No, I'm
If-
saying if we
do.
do,
If we do, they have to have both permits. They can't have
Right.
a festival. with-
correct.
So if you have local concerns, maybe you don't, you know, you wanna make sure it ends at 10 o'clock
Yeah.
or, you know, depending on where it is or something like that, like you can put those kind of time, manner, conditions on it. But, you know, but the state wouldn't, they wouldn't care, they wouldn't know, you know, they're not. Gonna do all those things. So it does allow you a little bit of that authority to say, okay, you're closing down Main Street and you have to be done by, you know. but-
Catherine, with that, do we have to write that into our ordinance if we are going to be judging them based on those types of parameters in terms of timeframes or dates or location?
It's in there, so it says a festival permit may be conditioned on the imposition of reasonable conditions such as time, place, manner, or sales or distribution of alcohol in order to promote and preserve preserve the health, safety, and welfare of the public.
So that gives us the flexibility to review them on a one-by-one basis. We don't have to have the specific parameters. Okay, thank you. That's really helpful.
So I think consensus is yes, go ahead.
Bring it to the council.
See if you can find something on the definition. That would be great. Okay, moving on, then now we are talking about medical marijuana.
So, easy now. So we sent you a memo. Included with that memo is your current code provisions. It was attached at the back on marijuana. And so this stems from kind of the general Title V review revision. This section of Title V is very old. It's prior to really any state regulation of medical marijuana. So the terminology is out of whack. There's some updates we need to make, but before we drafted anything, honestly, I didn't know what to draft because I wanted to go over the types of licenses you have now, what's currently available, and where you want to go with that. To my knowledge, and Ryan can correct me if I'm wrong, you only have the one store. You don't have.
We have two now.
Oh, you have two stores, sorry. I don't know that you have any cultivation activities or any products manufactured. So the way that your current code is drafted, it's all kind of under one terminology for licensing. If you did move forward with different types of licenses, we would split that out, which would probably also require an amendment to your UDC for terminology at the very least, but also it's always helpful if you do move forward to have a conversation about where can they be located? They gotta be all the distances from certain activities and they gotta be in their certain zones and, you know, is there really a property for this thing? If that's what interests you. So we probably, I guess my point is we would have a lot further discussions on this topic once you kind of give the initial direction on tonight. The other component we're looking for direction on is, unlike your liquor licensing, this is solely done at the staff level. And so that's a bit unusual. I can't tell you why it was set up like that long before my time. Maybe because there wasn't, they didn't think they were gonna have very many, I don't know. So I guess the question is, most communities your size do it, the council does, at least initial applications. Sometimes renewals are, you actually don't have a renewal provision, which is another issue. So your stores have never had to come through on a renewal. So they've never been evaluated as to whether or not there's any concerns or anything going on. I've also never heard anything, I will say that, but, so, you know, it's up to you whether you want to take on those, applications. I don't know how many you actually get. And whether or not you want to do renewals or staff do that. I mean, it's, and this isn't the final time you'll have this discussion, so you can change your minds.
We get a lot of inquiries, but with the exception that we had one that actually followed through with everything and we approved earlier this year. That's the only with this one, and then we've had a couple that have gone in over at the ice plant throughout the years, you know, change in ownership and things like that, but it always seems to be that one location. So
Which is right by a park.
What address is that?
Yeah, who is that?
Oh,
Yeah,
the,
it's like- yeah, the big white building,
That's Water Street.
the big white building.
But it's, there's another one that just opened, over towards Ortega's. It's between Highway 50 and East Main.
I didn't know about that.
Do you have a maximum of how many?
No,
The
the
only
only
two I
way
can.
that it would kind of.
Maggie's
like,
Farm
max
is in the
it-
county.
Little, yeah, no, that's in the county.
So it might max itself out like with distance and zoning, or just.
Right.
Be called to a max out. I mean, a lot of communities have kind of strategically, instead of a number, they kind of strategically zone and space things, so they're just like, there are 2 places they could be or something.
We're just talking medical.
We're just talking about-
Correct.
You don't have,
Mountain Wookiees does not sell.
They don't sell any.
It's just a head shop.
It just looks like those who painted it.
They actually sell some really cool stuff in there. They really do. I don't mean it smart. They have some neat stuff in there.
I've been in and they've got, what I saw was, you know, kind of a shop, a head shop area. But then there was a curtain and 21 and over beyond that curtain. And I thought, and I was saying, you know,
About it in town.
I did.
They can tell you what it is. Yeah,
Conversation now.
$5.
My roll forward.
so one thing about, to think about, you know, with the permitting in particular is that at staff level permitting, there's no public hearing.
Yeah.
So the public is not getting input on licensing. And as you know, marijuana can be a very touching, a lot of people have opinions, let's just put it that way. And so the public is kind of been cut out. So that might interest you in your contemplation of the process you would like.
So the 2 we've got right now are one by Ortega's and Chase's Choice, is that right?
I think that's.
Yeah, Chase's
Yeah.
choice.
Okay, so they actually are a medical marijuana facility or, and what, do we know what kind of license they've got?
Should be medical.
Should be
Well,
a store,
They
yeah.
sell
believe
hemp
it's-
products. Beyond that, I don't know.
But it's not a products manufacturer?
Yeah, they do manufacture it.
But
too.
they do they do it there? I see. I just don't.
They probably, maybe part of it, but they have their whole supply chain.
Right.
They had a business after hours there.
Mm,
And so Chamber of Commerce essentially all went over there.
Yeah.
But they were, you know, and that, I'm asking because that, you know, it seemed to me that what they were telling people they were doing was a lot of medical products
right.
Yeah.
creation is what I
Right,
understood.
they do.
And I might have
Yeah.
They do that much create. I really don't. I know they have a lab somewhere, but I don't think it's there. I really,
Well, that could be, I
Right.
don't know.
Right,
because the other thing they do there, and I don't know if you know this, is they also, just to say this real fast, they do a food distribution.
Yeah.
it
They
for-
do.
They do it for vets.
For
No,
vets.
but it's not just for vets. It's for law enforcement. It's for prison workers.
Yep.
I mean, it's a big deal.
So if they had had a public hearing to city council, we would have been answers to a lot of these questions.
Right.
Right.
Right. So that would be my choice is that we do make it, you know, a public
The
hearing,
initial.
at least the
Yeah.
initial, you know, in the, I don't know. I would think that you know, in this case, it seems to me that more regulation would be better to know about if there's change of ownership, and things like that. But I mean, what do you all think?
I agree, and also at the renewal as well. I mean,
What-
liquor's
yeah,
licensing
add a
has been
renewal, yeah.
Yeah,
too.
Absolutely.
Staff's recommendation would be a process that similar parallel to the liquor licensing process.
Yeah.
Yeah, and things like
To the old-
change of ownership or change of business interest, they have to file all those
All that has to be
applications with the
filed,
state.
right.
And so they'd have to come through here too and notify for that. And you can decide whether you want to see those or you want staff to see those and report back to you or that kind of like a liquor conversation.
So we've only got 2. So what I currently, and I would like to know what's going on. I mean, that's what I would.
Especially because I didn't even know we had 2 in city limits. I thought the only 2 in town we had were in the county.
And I thought.
well, that's medical.
You say
This
the
is
only
medical.
two the ones that were
For a
happening.
long time.
We didn't have any.
You say we don't have any restrictions. Do we do for like next to school, right?
You have,
Quite a few.
I believe you do have a parks restriction in there.
Yeah,
So what, would that make the ice house legal non-conforming or something like that, or
if it was current, is it currently? in
Yeah.
there?
what if they came up with renewal?
Well, it's, I'm.
Well, and let's be honest, if, once the park and that gets going, and if by chance some people who have that, own that piece of property follow through with some of their initial thoughts on it, and I know this, and not gonna say everything that it is, but it's that,
Yeah,
that
well,
building will change, and we'll see on all that,
You
but,
can't say by chance. I mean,
right,
that's,
So, but
that's not something we want.
here's where I think the issue is that is, right now, it's prohibited in central business district and with certain distance limitations for other things. But I don't think that our zoning for riverfront zoning allows that use.
No, it's not listed.
So then why are they?
It has not been rezoned yet. So
Yeah,
we,
So it's not actually
Right.
zoned that.
Right.
You've only created the text and not the actual mapping.
Yes,
And so it's
we've been waiting.
whatever it is. I don't know what's down there.
Okay, it's almost
Commercial.
debated
it's
devil's
it's
advocate.
general commercial.
This is medical marijuana.
right.
And so I have an issue as far as not getting too into the weeds. Because,
Excuse me.
I didn't mean it actually to say it that way, but I'm just saying is we need to keep an eye on the fact that it's medical marijuana with a doctor's prescription. And if the store is maintaining its rules, I don't see too big of an issue because frankly, everybody I know that's on it is my age a
Right,
little bit.
right.
And so I don't want us to get too hung up on,
It's not just a doctor's prescription. You have to actually obtain a medical license
Yeah.
from the prescription.
yes,
And most of these dispensaries are gonna stay in good standing with the state.
yeah,
Right.
Because once you lose your license.
you never get it again, yeah.
It's very complex, the state regulations.
So,
It's
so,
hard to,
so what I would say, Kathy, is, so what I would say is that I would like to be a little bit more restrictive now. And if it gets to be a burden and it fills up our agenda and stuff like that, then maybe we can move it down.
Yeah, and I have no problem with process, because I think process is important. That way you can vet it and all, everything that way. I guess maybe I'm getting a little concerned about an existing deal. If they suddenly, you rezone something, are they gonna be kicked out?
No, so it's first
They
in
get
time.
grandfathered in.
Yep. And so let's say, it's always gonna ask this question, one gets established and school moves in. Or you have
Right.
distance requirements from daycare, it's first in time. So
Right.
they don't have to get up and leave because the daycare comes in next door.
But when we do develop a riverfront, we don't want it to be in marijuana riverfront.
No.
we might have to work with them like Acorn.
They don't own the property.
So rather than for parks, this is starting to get, trying to write legislation type stuff, but for parks, if there's a physical barrier, I don't mind it. The problem is gonna be the park on this side.
I just don't like big flashing signs. Let's use marijuana.
Yeah,
Children.
right.
It's medical
Let's-
marijuana.
let's
I know,
deal with that.
still,
It's
but
medical. Why don't we
still-
just send everybody out of town to buy their medical marijuana?
So there are restrictions on advertising. I mean, you have your general sign restrictions.
Yeah.
And flashing lights and illuminated stuff, but there are restrictions on advertising. It's not protected speech. So, because it's so there are restrictions we can impose on advertising. So you're 1,000 feet from a public park right now, that's your, and you don't define public park.
Right.
So if you're gonna keep that distance or some distance requirement related to a public park, you might want to.
You might want to Find what kind of park.
Exactly. Exactly, because,
don't know if we're trying, if we wanted to, you could.
we have a liquor store
I think they do.
right next to that Discovery School. That's on Washington
They've done
Street.
it.
It's like right there. So, but I mean, we already have that. And so
And
However, Skyline, I don't know what it's called now. It used to be Skyline Liquor.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But I'm sure, I'm almost positive that Skyline Liquor was there before the school was built.
I think.
There you go, probably.
yeah, and distance under your code anyway for marijuana is measured by pedestrian access, so it's not as a code use.
Ah.
You kind of
okay.
play
There's your-
into
Here's your.
what you see on a map.
Yeah.
As
There's your
opposed to like
1,000 feet.
crosswalk here, because it has pedestrian access, which is
Right.
legal, so you can like.
So,
jaywalk.
so we wouldn't create an automatic non-compliance if it's by pedestrian, because they gotta walk down by the tracks and then walk back,
Yeah.
or walk over across the bridge, and
Right.
whatever, so
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
It's mostly hard.
Yeah, it's more than 1,000 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
That's at that end.
Yes.
That's near.
It's kind of a no man's. land.
Centennial's
Yeah.
about 200 as the crow flies, so by the time you add in the pedestrian piece, you're probably.
Right, and this is property line and property. Sometimes it's building to building, so the distance measurements can be
Mhm.
changed.
Is there any other guidance that you?
So do you want to allow the three you allow now? Is that what you'd like? So you have cultivation now. So just a quick word on cultivation. It used to be, back when this was adopted, that cultivation had to be tied to one of the other licenses. That is no longer the case. Cultivation can be a standalone license. Okay, so you can just be a marijuana cultivator, own no stores, no products manufactured, and you just sell wholesale to those entities. You have a products manufacturing license, and then you have the store, the retail-ish.
And it's still all for just medical.
It's all medical. We're not talking about recreational retail marijuana. Just medical. So those are the three things you allow now. But if you want to move forward with those three, we would split them out as separate licenses, because right now they're kind of treated as one license under the city's definition. So we would split them out. But you can say, no, we don't want anything, or we want one of those, and not the other two.
And I'm assuming the cultivation has to be enclosed.
Mhm, yes.
Like
no outdoor-
operation rules.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no outdoor.
Cameras, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so
Ventilation.
That means.
yeah, your code actually has a lot of components that you just have to probably make slight tweaks to. All the security measures, the ventilation, all that kind of stuff. I mean, when John drafted this, I mean, he had an idea of where things were going. I think. So those things are pretty much intact now. We're just gonna update them maybe a little bit. So, yeah, it's the marijuana, in both retail and medical applications are massive undertakings. So, and you may also wish, as a side note, down the line to revisit this. They are quite low.
They are very.
We might want to do
Yeah,
a little
that's right.
survey of neighboring communities,
Mm.
It's,
Yeah.
because it's a pretty intensive application too.
I have a question, Catherine, just in the wording of them, in the memo, the top of page 3. I made a note, let's see if I can figure out my own note. Just the wording, about the third line down, medical marijuana business operator must have a place of business separate from the licensed premises operated by the licensed business operator. I don't quite understand what that sentence says.
Yeah, so a business operator license is someone who like manages, let's say a medical marijuana store. But that business operator, their business cannot be operated out of the medical store itself. It has to have a separate location. I don't know.
I'm still not following that, but.
So-
It's like a
others
third
are.
party operator.
Yeah, so I own a medical marijuana store and I hire Ryan to manage it for me. Ryan's business is Ryan's Management of Medical Marijuana Stores, Inc.
Mhm.
Ryan's Management of Medical Marijuana Stores, Inc. has to have a separate location where his offices are. Then he can come to the store and do his management stuff, but his business has to be operated from a different location. It cannot be like, operated from the
What's the
license.
stop?
That's a weird little thing.
that's a state thing. Huh?
That's out of the state. So,
It could be related to the fact that when this started, it was a cash business only.
Yeah.
And maybe it was something to deal with the security of the cash on it.
It could be.
Except that
versus,
these licenses are fairly new, the business operator licenses
Okay.
are fairly new, so I don't know, I just don't know, like, if there's, and I wonder, I don't know enough about the medical marijuana industry, but I wonder if there's a lot of management companies now that are operating for different other stores or products manufacturers,
there-
and so the state wants to separate them out since they're actually doing these other businesses and require them to have a separate location. That's all, that's all, that's my best.
it's almost like a holding company.
No, it's just like a management company,
Okay.
yeah.
And it can be actually based out of a home. It could be a home management company.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I mean,
That's, I'm just saying that just so people know. It doesn't have to be, they don't have to. They can do it right out of their house. Because that's a separate building. and that-
So like if you own a bunch of property and you hire a property.
Yeah,
company
no
to
different.
handle all your rentals, so that.
Yeah.
I do have one unrelated question about the discussion about delivery services and
Yep.
whether we want to prohibit entities from outside the city being able to deliver. And I guess my basic question is, can we legally even do that? And then the other question is, do we care where? it comes from?
So the answer to your first question is yes, you're specifically authorized under state law to prohibit the delivery of a medical marijuana, like Maggie's Farm, I guess is right in the county, right? So they could not deliver into patients into the city. Those patients would have to.
That's like a pretty unusual thing. I would assume mostly state law doesn't prohibit that for other
Sounds like
things.
delivering liquor.
So-
I think if I had to guess, I think it's probably for communities that don't have any marijuana and don't want it.
Right.
So they don't want people coming in. So, I mean, and I don't know if Colorado Springs prohibits delivery from Manitou, but it's a great example of two communities that are just, I know that Colorado Springs just put the ballot question on and it failed. But it's a great, like, Manitou has always been out there with marijuana. And they make hand over fist just an incredible amount of money. And part of the reason they do is Colorado Springs doesn't have it.
Right.
So Colorado Springs could say, well, we don't want it at all. We don't want you coming in here and delivering your retail marijuana to people. So you can do it for both types of marijuana.
The difference though is the municipality receiving the delivery gets the tax dollars. So like if Pueblo's recreational facilities delivered here, we get the tax dollars.
But that would be bad.
That's a really long drive.
I think people are doing it though.
Yeah, so you can do that.
That's
You
above
can-
my knowledge.
You cannot do that. That's your call. Whether or not, the answer to your second
Gotcha.
question is, it's your call.
I mean, I guess another argument is that we just want to, we're gonna have 2 medical marijuana stores in town, that we want them to have the purview to be able to take care of our own people. And not have outsiders.
And that's what you said, yeah.
Yep. I think the whole thing really is interesting. I think back to buying, this is not directly related, but another hemp product is CBD stuff. And I just had to laugh months and months ago when I bought a CBD cream in Walgreens and it was under lock and key. It's like, there's no THC in here, but it's locked up.
I had
Kids don't always
I had a ton of
understand.
citizens,
Yeah.
a ton of citizens that constantly hit me up when the old Dairy Queen was a CBD shop. And because it was across the street from the middle school,
Oh,
yeah.
there was constant concern from citizens.
wow.
You know, I think these regulations were adjusted by council since 2010. I have some memory of being on the planning commission and dealing with the issue of security cameras. Because at the time they had they had some really crazy technology requirements in there that would not have resulted in clear images of individuals that might be malfeasing. But so I think that the council addressed this. Is that?
That section was modified in 11, again in 11, in 17, and then 21.
Yeah,
So I don't know 17.
17 is one.
Yeah,
I
so it
remember
could be that-
something in 21 as well.
Our very first one, I mean, there wasn't even anything posted. We were just starting from scratch, just trying to figure out what. we were gonna do.
In 21, it was probably some of the changes to the land use code.
Right.
Yeah,
That was when we were going
The
through comprehensive plan.
references.
Yeah, the references were updated.
So we're are you able to distill anything?
Well, so let's talk about the three you have. Do you want to keep those three? Let's start there.
The three types of licenses.
Stores, products manufacturing and cultivation.
Yes, yeah.
We have testing facilities, so that's where they actually do the testing of marijuana. This is something that's completely closed off to the public. It's just used by the other licensees to test. potency of the marijuana.
No,
This is to
Not
test
that.
for THC and make sure they can label their products.
right, but if they, the people who cultivate it, don't they have to test it at some point?
Yeah, they contract with.
They-
testing
But they
facilities.
send it
Yeah,
out.
but they could send it out.
Yeah, I mean,
But if
Yeah.
they have a chance to do it in-house, I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of it, because you know what, if it's a business that's here and let them test their stuff.
Testing and research.
Yeah.
I mean, testing for potency is one thing, but, you know, here, try this, you know?
Nothing me.
So then we have the business operator license, which we talked about before. I don't know what your feelings are on that. It would allow these companies to exist within the city of Kansas City to help manage the other licenses. No one's asked me for that at this point.
Yeah,
No,
So,
I think part of the reason why we don't get a whole lot of inquiries, because we only allow medical.
Right.
Most of the money is in the retail.
Yeah.
And so we don't get a whole lot of inquiries from that standpoint. Cindy, as the clerk, does get inquiries about putting retail on the ballot as a citizen initiative.
regularly,
Yeah, on a regular basis, as recently as earlier this week. So, you know,
handle it through the election process.
Petition.
Yeah, you gotta get.
We
and-
really, we don't play a role.
We don't,
Right.
no.
Other than my vote.
but yeah, we don't get a whole lot of inquiries on the medical side.
All right, so we're gonna say no to the business operator license. The research and development license, this is kind of like the testing license, but you know, just seeing what different products produce and that kind of thing. That's a pretty, I think down here in this part of the state, that's probably not something you're even gonna see anybody inquire about.
Yeah.
You never know, they
You
might,
never know,
Entrepreneur.
right?
so we'll say for no,
Right.
for now.
Right,
For me, that's a
right, but the thing is that it could be a new business. They're not gonna sell it. It's just for testing.
That's correct.
So that might be a viable business.
Is it
Yeah.
gonna create jobs?
Could be.
If
Yeah,
it creates
that's-
jobs, I'm
Good.
there. Yeah, if it can create jobs.
Good.
Man, it's
But-
just a question.
But I mean, as long as they're not selling either kind, it's just a testing
I think we
facility.
should maybe leave that an opportunity and handle it if it should come up.
Agree.
Yeah, we can always.
So,
go
in
back,
other
I
words,
suppose.
I'm suggesting not to take it completely off the table, but which leaves you hanging.
I can put it in the ordinance and you can think about it and
Right.
pull it out or keep it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
So,
that's fine.
and if we stumble on anything we don't know yet about,
So a transporter license, this is basically the person that takes the big quantities and drives them around to different locations as required.
I do know from the 21 conversation that we had when we were kind of revisiting this, all of the transport, whether it's retail or medical, they are unmarked vans. So it's not a big bright advertisement that there is marijuana in this vehicle.
Right. And the storage facilities
I would
around the
assume they
state
wanna
are
stay
all
under the-
disguised.
Right. They want to
Radar.
stay just as under the radar as
We won.
municipalities want them to,
Oh,
right?
yeah, they agree, anybody can know.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. We'll put that in. And then the last one is the delivery permit. that we talked about previously.
Yeah,
Messing
So you wanna prohibit outside the.
yes.
Yeah.
Here's my question though. If you are an older elderly person who cannot drive,
Yeah.
Well, our two stores can deliver.
Oh, our two stores can?
Yeah, oh, yeah, so we
Okay.
would prohibit outside.
That's fine.
Outside
I'm
can't.
good with that. I just,
Yeah, no,
And I think you also have.
we don't have
agent.
we don't have public transportation here. So
Right.
it's tough to get to your doctor's appointments as it is, get to pharmacies like this.
Okay, and then on process, we will kind of mirror your liquor licenses, but we can start from there and then you can say, no, move this around.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Wasn't so bad.
Yeah, we don't like it.
Well, in the beginning,
Like,
I,
oh,
you know, I had somewhat recently gotten my win self-defense black belt.
wow.
And I, at those meetings, felt like there were actually.
Wow.
It's pretty volatile.
So you don't want to open the door about when says.
No.
Amy has her hand up.
Oh, yes, Amy.
No, sorry, that was an error on my part.
Okay.
Dang it.
Thank you. By the way, what time is it in
Yeah, that's what
Morocco?
I wanted to know.
It is 2:51 a.m.
Whoa.
This is a committed council.
That is-
The, do we have a supply of gold stars?
Was that in the budget?
I will say, I'm not sure if the technology has been upgraded, but I can absolutely hear everyone so much better. So I'm not sure if there are
Okay.
more around, but it sounds great.
It has not been upgraded, but we will say that it is, we cannot move the Ls from where they're at because Elijah and Brandon did a very good job calibrating the
Wow.
Ls and know exactly where they have to be.
Got it. Good point. Well, we hope we entertained you a little bit too tonight.
That was the upgrade.
Okay, any other comments or anything else we need to cover tonight?
That's good.
I think then we're adjourned.
Good morning, Amy. See you later.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye, guys.